Well, my name is Kat.
And I'm Hayley.
And this is Night Classy.
Night Creepy.
You wish. A podcast where two teachers unwind, sip wine. Sometimes. We haven't really been sipping wine. And we always discuss the topics we wish we could teach at school. So we're not drinking wine, but what are we drinking?
I've got a White Claw here, tangerine, and then I have watermelon queued up from their new variety pack.
It looks like the tangerine and the watermelon are both open.
They are, because I didn't want it to make the cracking sound when I inevitably open it.
That's smart. I have a mango queued up, but I'm just going to crack it open into the mic.
Wow. You just don't care about the quality of our podcast, do you?
No laws when you're drinking claws. According to Miss Madden.
Anytime I get to any trouble or like an argument, I'm like, hold on. Go run to the kitchen, grab a White Claw, and be like, okay, we can continue. I can do whatever I want now.
Can we start that tradition?
Yeah, let's start it.
We always have White Claws in our fridge, so we may as well.
We just have like a glass case in our kitchen that's like break in case of emergency, and there's a single White Claw in there.
There'd be like glass all over our floor constantly. It would be a real safety hazard for our cats.
Oh, our cats.
Yeah,
they're so cute.
Their little toes could get cut by the glass.
Their little beans.
Little baby toes.
Safty's very vocal. He would cry.
Oh, he would
so loud.
Scream. I was about ready to kick him this morning because you know what he did?
What?
He was hungry. And instead of going to his mom, aka Hayley, he came into my room and sat on the floor next to my bed and just starts screaming at 7:30 in the morning.
I think he is like kind of confused because like he's very attached to me, but now that he's like spending a lot more time around Ghost is always with you. And so I was like talking to him, he's like, I'm kind of sad. Like, I'm really glad that all the cats have each other, but they're always in Kat and Alex's room.
Yeah, I think part of it too is that our room is on the main floor, so it's like easier access for them.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. They follow Ghost around and Ghost tends to follow me around. So it kind of... we just have like a cat parade in our room all the time. Yeah. And maybe you shouldn't be that jealous because my pure, beautiful, brand new white bedspread is covered in black cat hair right now. So count your blessings.
Well, I was counting them real loud this morning at 5 a.m. when they were all around in my room scrambling and having a great fucking time.
I know. It was weird. For the last like few days, you haven't been at the house. So all the cats have been in me and Alex's room. And we wake up and there's like 2 kittens on the bed. And then Ghost is like laying next to the bed. And it's just like cat central. And then I woke up this morning like earlier before Safety started screaming at me. And I just woke up for a second. There were no cats on the bed. Like, this is kind of sad. And then I went back to sleep and then woke up like an hour later with a cat screaming at the top of his lungs.
He sounds like he's been smoking for 70 years too. He's so raspy.
He has this weird like raspy meow that doesn't even sound like a meow, and he's relentless.
Yeah.
He does
That's
not
why
stop.
I'm like food training him, because I don't want him, like, I need him to know on a schedule, this is when you get fed, so don't come to me any other time.
I did that with Ghost and it worked pretty well. Like, Ghost never wakes me up because he knows that no amount of meowing will get me out of bed. But Safety was just a little Hellraiser. And also, like, it's hard to ignore a kitten. You feel bad for them. It's a little easier with a full-grown fat cat that doesn't need any food. But a little kitten, I felt bad. And I went and fed him.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And also, when you feed him, he, like, acts like the Tasmanian devil who's never seen food in his life.
Yeah, you can hear him smacking his jaws on every bite.
Yeah. And he tried to eat Ghost's food. So I just, like, lifted him up to put him next to his food. And he, like, attacked my hand. His legs were moving in a mile an hour. He starts screaming again.
He goes crazy.
It was insane.
Poor little guy had worms. I'm sure they're gone by now, but he's definitely behind Ernie in like the gaining weight spectrum because Safty's a little runt.
Yeah, Ernie's a fat fatty, mostly because Alec and I are pushovers, so we feed him twice a day. Hayley is like a stricter mom, so Safty gets fed once a day.
I love my cat, but I don't want to deal with paying for vet stuff related to a possibly fat cat later on.
Yeah.
And that's my logic on it.
Okay.
You guys should note for the listeners that they have constant access to dry food.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
This is just their wet food.
They're not being starved.
Yeah.
They always can have dry food.
Yes, they have wet food. And like it's really sad because Ghost only gets wet food in the morning. And then Ernie gets wet food in the morning and the evening because he's a growing boy. And so Ernie will eat his food and Ghost just like, he's a very good dad. He never tries to steal Ernie's food, but he just like sits there and watches him with a really sad look on his face.
Yeah, they're really good together.
Yeah.
And if you can't tell by now, we're into our new house, which is very exciting. Should we talk about our first couple nights in the new house?
Yeah. So for me, it's been awesome. Good vibes all around. I moved in. Alec and I moved in like a couple nights before Hayley did. So she like just moved in and it's been interesting.
Yeah. Last night was the second official night staying at the house. And then it is an older house. When was it built? Like in the 40s?
1916.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's old.
I didn't know that. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, as you guys know, I'm sure we are big believers in paranormal type stuff.
Big believers.
And so we're
if
like,
you're not a believer in ghosts, you're just a conspiracy theorist and I don't want to hear about it.
so we have been like, I would say seeking out experiences.
Yeah, everything is an experience.
Everything is an experience. But there was a particularly kind of creepy, spooky thing that happened to me upstairs in my bedroom. I was just still moving things in, and the fan and the overhead light has 4 sections where you can like plug in bulbs, and there were only 2 plugged in. And I realized, I was like, oh, there's some extra just loose random light bulbs in the hall closet, so I'm going to plug them in so it can be bright in here when I'm moving stuff in. And I plug in the first one, twist it in, and it lights up and it works. I go to the last one, twist in the light bulb, and it doesn't work. So I'm like, all right, there's another one, let me grab that. So I untwist it and toss it into a paper bag that I was using as a trash can. In that paper bag was a cardboard pizza box and some old Ugg boots that I no longer needed. I was just going to toss out. They're in terrible condition, or else I would donate them.
Was it my old Ugg boots that I gave you?
No. These were boots from like
up.
8th grade.
Don't you dare. I want them back. If you're going to throw them away.
No. I'm throwing away my 8th grade Ugg boots because you gifted me your old Ugg boots. Okay. And so anyway, I throw this light bulb in and it goes into this paper bag that was being used for trash, and it illuminates. It was not touching anything metal, and it illuminates for like 1 second and then goes out. And it's not an old light bulb. It is I don't even know what they're called. It's like one of the ones,
one of the spirally gas ones.
Yes.
And so after Hayley told me this, I posted on r/paranormal on Reddit, and I just recounted the story. I'm like, is there any way that it could have just been like some kind of delayed transfer of energy in the light bulb? Because I wanted to debunk it. Because your first assumption should always be like, can this be debunked? And someone was saying that like in some like really old filament bulbs, like maybe the filament part wasn't touching the base, and the base got charged a little bit from being plugged in, and then like getting thrown in the trash jostled the filament and touched it to the charged part, and it could have lit up. But that's only in old filament bulbs, which this was not. It was a gas bulb. So because of that, it's impossible to our knowledge that it could have just lit up like that.
So if you know or have had a similar experience, let us know. And it's hardwood floors in there. So it's not like I'm walking with socks on carpet and static is like lighting up this light bulb or something like that. Like it was just totally unexplainable in my experience.
Yeah.
So that was my first experience. And you said you've gotten creepy vibes from my room.
Yeah, I just as soon as like I walked upstairs into Hayley's room. So there are 2 big bedrooms. I think Hayley's room was probably the original master bed of the house, and then Alec and I's is just like another big bedroom, but downstairs. And we were trying to like think about like what bedroom we would want, and I just like didn't really like. I just felt not off, like it didn't feel bad, but I just felt like there was something like in Hayley's room, and that's where this happened. And then also like you say you get whiffs of like men's cologne in the
Yes. Yeah, especially in the hall closet.
Okay.
I get, yeah, really it's waves. And like every time I go in there, go upstairs, it's not like that. It's just like every now and again.
Yeah, and that's like a really common thing with ghost experiences. If you just get like whiffs of a smell.
Another weird thing happened this morning, and I don't know if it's something or not, but I got up to like go to the bathroom and came back out, and like it's very hot upstairs. It's very humid, and the only cool spot is right by the air conditioner like unit. It's a window unit, and it's tucked into like the back corner of my room, which does not lead to the direct main area of my room. It's tucked back there. But I went through my door and it was very cold. And then like it was fine, and I got into bed and I was like, oh, I'm cold.
Like your whole room was cold?
No,
or it was just
not
a
my
cold
whole room.
spot?
It was just like a cold like spot. Like I got cold, and then I got back like, and I laid in bed and I was fine.
Maybe it was the ghost helping you out. Also, Alec and I named him.
You did? What is it?
Herbert.
Herbert?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That was I don't know. Alec just like told me, because there was also like this was not a ghost, but like our fridge was making a weird noise. It was like knock 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 knock.
Oh, the ice maker?
Yeah. And so like I went over and it was the ice maker, and then I came back and like, but like for a second we were creeped out because it sounded like something in the cabinet was knocking. And Alex like, the ghost needs a name, and Herbert was just the first thing that came to my mind. I think that's his name.
Great.
But we should also get like a Ouija board or a ghost box and ask him.
Yeah, I highly doubt we will not have any more experiences, because already within 48 hours of living here.
Oh yeah, I bet they're just gonna pick up.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so we'll have more stories for you guys once we start making enough money on Patreon that we can start like siphoning things to other areas. Our plan is to buy like a nice ghost box and then do Patreon episodes where we ghost hunt.
Yeah, we can take videos of us doing it. Maybe we can get like a heat thing. I don't know, I was going to say heat lamp. I don't even know if that's the right thing.
Alec thinks this is really funny.
A big non-believer, and so is Tommy.
Our boyfriends just make fun of us constantly. It's not nice.
I was just laughing at buying a heat lamp for reptiles to sunbathe and being like, we need to hunt ghosts.
We gotta like capture the ghost in the reptile tank.
I was misinformed.
Ghost, snakes, they're all creepy.
Yeah, just creepy things with Hayley and Kat.
We're starting another podcast. We just like created a podcast for our interest of the month.
Yeah, but I mean, ghosts have been a lifelong interest for me.
Right.
My cat's name is Ghost.
My mom is coming at the end of June, and she will be super into this. Yeah, because she's a huge believer in all this stuff, and she would love. We should get a Ouija board.
A Ouija board. Yeah, we definitely should. Alec knows this, but there's this like, so for a while, I think in the 90s, they were making like, so you know, we talked about this in our first episode, like boy toys and girl toys.
Yeah,
they were making girl Ouija boards. They were pink, and you know about this, and they were sold at Toys R Us, and people got really offended by this, and so they were pulled from the shelves. Production stopped, but now you can buy them on eBay for like between like $200 and $500.
What?
These like pink Ouija boards with like this cool carrying case. It looks like a makeup case, and you can put the Ouija board in it. And I want one so bad. Like I can never justify spending
that's
over $200 on one of these.
Way more expensive than I thought.
But I really would like one.
You know, my mom probably would not be down to do an Ouija board. She'd be like, fuck that.
Yeah, I feel like people who really believe are scared of Ouija boards.
Yeah.
But maybe like I have a pendulum. We could just like ask questions with like a little pendulum.
Yeah, we should do that. And I feel like Herbert, I don't get bad vibes. I think that it's a good fit.
I think he's nice. I think he just like wants us to know he's around.
Yes.
And I think he's probably happy we love his house so much.
Yeah, I think so too. I wonder if there's anyone else.
Yeah.
Anything else.
Maybe.
We'll find out. We'll keep you guys posted.
Yeah, we'll keep looking for you. Do you have any more updates before we do shout outs?
I don't think so. Do you?
Right. No, I don't. We are so stoked with the turnout on Patreon.
Overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It feels like I feel like I'm in a dream every time Kat's like, we have another person donating.
Yeah. I don't think you guys understand. It's not like we have no shade at podcasts that have hundreds or thousands of patrons, because like you're our idols. That's where we hope to be someday. But right now, like we don't have that many patrons. So every time, like we know all of your guys' names. We are obsessed with you. We've stalked your Instagrams. Like we're so
right. It
happy.
feels like a friendship where it feels like I'm dating someone online.
Yeah. Like we freak out every time someone donates. So I just really, from the bottom of our hearts, I want to thank our newest Patreon donors, Anastasia, Alana, Kelly, Nikki, and Sheena. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It really extends beyond whether, it's $1 per month or $5, whatever you're donating. It's so much more than that to us, because this really has started as a passion project and something that we were just doing for us. But to know that you're willing to invest money monthly on a subscription, it just it makes us feel really good, and we hope that we can deliver to you.
Right. The faith in us just like makes us want to work so much harder. And the other day, the three of us got like wasted in my room and started like crying because we were so passionate about this. And like we were getting into like arguments over like business strategies and like talking about plans. And it just like this really truly means a lot to us is the point I'm trying to get across. And it's really great. And I mean, you get more out of this than just feeling like you're helping us. You get access to bonus episodes featuring like quote unquote substitute teachers or guest hosts. We recorded one today and it was really awesome. We also send you a sticker, and then we have ideas for more merch in the works. Alec came up with this idea to do like wine glasses, and on them it says like night classy, wine glassy. So that might be kind of fun. Let us know if you're interested.
I was looking at wine glasses. I was actually going to surprise you guys, but then like it didn't end up happening like 2 months ago.
Oh, well, maybe you should do
maybe
that.
I'll do that.
And
yeah, maybe you could ask the people out there listening what kind of merch they want, because we were thinking about t-shirts, but there's so much inventory you have to carry with t-shirts, and something like wine glasses more you could just one size fits all.
Neutral.
Yeah, I don't know if we're quite ready to invest in t-shirts, at least not where we are financially right now, but hopefully down the road we'll have t-shirts. And then of course, obviously, shout outs on the air. You get to choose a lesson topic, and hopefully you'll have access to even more bonus content like Hayley and I's ghost hunting videos. And also Hayley's boyfriend Tommy is like an amazing comedian and writes these skits that we act out.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have like a few of those, and I'm sure there'll be more. So the plan is to put those on Patreon.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah, it's pretty, or the last one we did was pretty crazy.
It's funny because like he writes them and edits them and everything like that. And then it's funny to see him directing us. And he like pulled me aside after we were done the other night, and he was like, hey, I was like re-listening to those videos and just hearing like how I directed you. I just want like, I felt like I was really mean, and I just want to let you know like you did like such a good job. I'm like, oh, that's, I'm like, it's funny seeing, I don't know.
Yeah,
him
he
in that
goes
role.
into director mode where like he has like one line of sight, and like he gets like tunnel vision where he's just like, but he wasn't being mean. He was just like to Hayley, because like Hayley had to scream a lot in this one, and he was just like more.
Yeah.
And then we couldn't stop laughing. Hayley especially couldn't stop laughing.
I was losing my shit, and I don't even know why. But you're right, and like just screaming in general is outside of my comfort zone. So doing that was like uncomfortable.
But he did a great job directing. And then Alec was an acting major and like did like high quality improv for a long time at, what is it, like the Gremlings Theater?
It's the Gremlings Theater. The Groundlings
Theater in LA. Which I don't know anything about improv, but supposedly that's a good one. And do you want to do a plug or no?
Oh, well, I was going to do a plug for my Patreon
episode.
Yeah,
you should.
Because you kind of brushed over it with, I didn't know if we were keeping it confidential. But
sorry, I'm still mad at you about our fight.
Okay, yeah. If you guys want to hear about the fight that Kat and I had, and hear me be the producer, be a substitute teacher, and teach these hosts a really
I thought you were
interesting
gonna call us
lesson.
hoes.
I did too. I thought you did.
Call you guys hoes?
If you want to hear me teach these hoes a lesson,
Oh my god!
and for $50 a month, you can see the video.
I've got these hoes on a leash, and you better listen on Patreon, folks. Principal Alec on the mic.
I just had a heart attack. Okay.
Oh my god! I can't believe you guys even thought I would be capable.
It
of
sounded
saying
like
that.
it. I
Yeah.
bet people are gonna be listening and be like, "Oh my god!" Oh, okay.
Yeah, for the people listening, I was saying hosts, as in podcast hosts.
Kat like looks at you. She's like, "Oh."
I can be. I'm just kidding. Okay. Well, anyway, Patreon is great.
Yeah, if you want more content like that, subscribe to Patreon because we got a really good episode coming out.
Yeah, it's really good. And we're like, one of our goals and reasons we are crying last night is because we want to make sure we're like consistently putting out content, especially on Patreon. So don't miss out. And you can go to patreon.com/nightclassy or download the Patreon app. And we really appreciate it. So I have one more thing. Do you have anything else?
No.
So I just feel responsible to mention this because we talk about the Bachelor and Bachelorette franchise so much on this show. And right now there's some seriously problematic stuff going on in Bachelor Nation. Specifically, a few weeks ago, former Bachelorette Hannah Brown said the N-word in a Instagram live video. On top of that, former cast members have been saying some really problematic stuff about the protests on Instagram and Twitter. And then, of course, there's the glaring issue of the lack of representation of people of color on the show. So if you're a Bachelor fan like Hayley and I recommend going on Instagram and following stars like Rachel Lindsay and Mike Johnson, who are people of color on the show. And they have really great things to say on the issue. So read what they have to say, show them support, let Bachelor Nation and Bachelor producers know that you support people of color as cast members. And hopefully we'll see some change in the franchise. And that's all I got to say on that. And then I guess we breathalyzed before the show. So I blew a .138.
And I blew a .133.
So I get to go first.
There's my alarm telling me I have a thing going off at 8:00 every night to count 5 things that I'm grateful for.
Oh, that's sweet. Do you want to tell our listeners the 5 things you're grateful for?
Yeah, so immediately I'm really grateful for just being in the studio, and I really feel the progress that we've made for Night Classy here in this moment. I'm grateful that we have the opportunity to be here and these like friendships. I have had a lot of memories popping up on social media, just knowing like from a year ago that I moved to Memphis a year ago, like yesterday or something like that. Yeah, it was like a couple days ago, I guess. But I'm just so grateful for the relationships that I've built here in Memphis and the community and the ongoing learning that I've experienced here. I'm very grateful for the house that we're in now, having a safe place to live and being able to live with people that I feel like are like family. I am grateful for health, really, coming out of, not that COVID-19 and the pandemic is over, but knowing that things are looking up, taking precautions, of course, wearing a mask, washing hands, continuing to do all of that. I feel grateful and optimistic about the future. And I am grateful for, I don't know if that was 5 things. I feel like it was.
Sounds like 5 things.
Yeah, nothing else immediately comes to mind. No. I'm grateful for the position that I'm in now, just professionally, financially. Well, that was, I have to say professionally and personally.
Yeah. I mean, we are lucky to have jobs no matter how underpaid we are.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Financially, yes, we're in summertime as a teacher. We're still getting paid through these months. So yeah, I am grateful for where I am financially. Yeah. I'm grateful to be able to give back too, and to be able to get resources that I need to continue my education for everything that's going on right now in the US.
Yeah, and be donating and be in a position where we are healthy enough to go to protests. Really grateful for that. And I second everything you said. And I'm ready to get to my lesson.
Sweet.
Thank you, Hayley.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So my sources include National Geographic, the Nature, Ecology, and Evolution Journal, the Library of Congress, viagenpets.com, and Wikipedia. So some serious sources this week, you guys. I wanted to switch it up from my last couple of weeks where my source was Reddit. So.
On this week's episode, Cat Gets Credible.
Yeah, that's right. I'm trying to really drive home that I have a brain in my head after these last couple of weeks. So on that note, Hayley, the earliest evidence of cat-human relationships dates back to 7,500 BC in Cyprus.
Nice.
Where an over 9,000-year-old cat skeleton was found buried in a human grave.
Oh.
So someone got buried with their cat.
See, but here's where my thinking goes. Do they kill the cat once the human dies?
Okay, so let's not dwell on that part.
Maybe, do they exhume the body? What happens there? Because that I'm not bored with.
Maybe the human. So actually, like, there were on different sources. Sometimes it said the cat was buried with a human, and sometimes it was said like the cat was buried in like a human dug grave. So I'm not entirely sure. Hopefully they didn't kill the cat. Let's say they didn't kill the cat. Someone had a pet cat in 7,500 BC.
And they were buried together. That's all you need to know. The rest is classified.
Yeah. And since then, as we know, cats have played an integral role in the lives of humans, serving as protectors from vermin, cuddly companions like our babies Ernie, Safety, and Ghost, and even as gods to some humans. Mm-hmm. And so recent research suggests, like I said, that cat domestication dates back at least 9,000 years.
Oh, that's so long.
A long time. But cats aren't really that domesticated because they domesticated themselves. Humans really had nothing to do with it.
Oh my God, that is such a cat thing to do. It's like, I'm going to go inside and I'm just going to live off of humans.
Yeah, that's exactly what they did. So domesticated started back in the Fertile Crescent when people began storing grain. And with grain, it brought in vermin and mice eating the grain. And with all the vermin, brought in cats. So cats started hanging around people, being in people's houses and barns, hunting the rats. And cats and humans entered into a mutually beneficial relationship that, like we said, lasted thousands of years. And even though cats were not selectively bred or domesticated intentionally until very, very recently. So most of this information comes from a study by the Nature, Ecology, and Evolution Scientific Journal, and they analyzed the DNA and coat patterns of like thousands of cat specimens, starting with the one that was 9,000 years old and all the way up to modern cats. So they were really able to trace the DNA, specifically like the mitochondrial DNA, to all these different clades of cats, and they're like really able to see how cats expanded and what their genetic makeup is in relation to wild cats.
I freaking love science. The fact that we can go, it's really like time traveling to me, that we're able to take mitochondrial DNA and uncover this whole code in history.
Right. Like from mummies. And like not fossils, but mummies and skeletons that they dug up that are thousands of years old. It's pretty crazy. And so their findings concluded that all domesticated cats share DNA with both African wildcats and Southwest Asian wildcats. Have you ever seen what those look like?
No.
They're both, they both pretty much look like their legs are a little longer. They kind of look like ratty looking house cats. I think Alex's gonna pull up a picture for Hayley, but they do look a lot like cats. They have like tabby patterns, and just pretty, just like long legs and tails. Yeah. They're not quite as fluffy. They kind of...
Isn't it funny how we just call cats cats, but like if you have a dog, it's like, oh, it's a German Shepherd. It's a lab.
Yeah. But I think that's because like dogs were domesticated so long ago that we have like all these different breeds that look very different.
And
whereas
so
cats,
purposefully.
cats are barely domesticated. So they kind of all look the same for the most part. And so for all of cats' existence, they've continuously interbred with these wild cats, meaning domestic cats still share a lot of DNA with wild cats and don't really have that much genetic difference at all. And the study was able to conclude that there were 2 waves of cat domestication, one in the Fertile Crescent and one in ancient Egypt. And from there, domesticated cats spread quickly through the New World in Asia, or the Old World in Asia, I mean. And so DNA analysis shows that the spread of domesticated cats happened along maritime trade and war routes. So they were able to see through fossils and skeletons how cats spread along the New or the Old World, and it was through these trade routes on ships. So,
oh my god. Okay, cool.
What were you gonna say?
I'll talk about trade routes too later on.
Cool.
Yeah, so we'll get to see different things spreading along trade routes.
I'm excited. Are we talking about the plague?
No, not the plague.
Okay. Anyway, so basically, like, you had to have a cat on your ship. They protected your food from rodents. And because cats have a gestation period of only 58 to 67 days and get pregnant as young as 4 months old and give birth to an average of 3 to 5 kittens, their populations just like skyrocketed pretty much anywhere they went. And cat domestication was further accelerated in Egypt in the classical period because cats gained a powerful role in spirituality.
I wonder how they did that. What made them spiritual or like godlike? Was that already in place?
No, it was because of how beneficial they were to humans.
Wow.
Like, people were so thankful to have cats around because it really was their protectors from starvation and disease. And so one of the main deities was called Bastet, and she was the Egyptian goddess of cats. She had a cat head, and she was also the goddess of home, fire, sunrise, music, dance, pleasure, as well as sexuality, fertility, family, pregnant women, and children. And cats are seen as incarnations of Bastet. So you had these house cats, and they were all her incarnation, as far as I understand. And they were worshipped. You'd honor your cat in your home. And upon their death, they were embalmed, put in coffins, and buried in like specified cat cemeteries.
That is so cool. Ooh, like a pet cemetery?
Yeah, like a pet cemetery, but like only for cats in ancient Egypt.
Real cats only.
Pretty amazing. Yeah, real cats only. And so they're already a worldwide sensation, at least in Egypt. And then
worldwide, Egypt,
but also everywhere that Egypt traded and went to war with, which is a lot of places.
Right.
And then the Roman Empire like brought cats north of the Alps, and it was just a whole thing. And then later during the Iron Age, which I think, I'm a history major, I should know this off the top of my head, but I think it was around 300 BC is the Iron Age. And that then like black rats and house mice, their populations really started to go up. I'm not sure why. It probably had something to do with like food sources in houses. Mm-hmm. And then that also contributed to cats' popularity. And so cats have been around in houses and been a very important part of people's lives all of this time. But it was not until the Middle Ages that distinct differences between wild and domesticated cats began to emerge. And this study said that the main difference is really just like the markings on their fur. So wild cats tend to have the mackerel pattern, which is like, you saw that on the wild cats on the screen. Like, it's kind of like tabby stripes, but they're really thin, and then they're kind of spotted on their belly. Mm-hmm. Like Ernie, our kitten, like has like a mackerel pattern, I would say.
Gotcha.
And then the mark of like a domesticated cat, like only domesticated cats have the tabby blotched pattern, which this is the blotched pattern. So it's like, so the mackerel pattern has like these thin stripes, and then the blotched pattern has these thicker ones, and wild cats don't get the thick ones.
That's so wild.
Yeah. And they don't think that's because of people intentionally breeding those. It was just because like the populations of domesticated cats were interbreeding, and like there was some kind of deviation in genetics, and this happened.
Okay. Yeah.
And then so the Middle Ages came and went, and then it was not until the 1800s that people began to selectively breed fancy breeds like Persians and Siamese. So that was like just
That's a
over
long
200 years
time.
ago.
Yeah.
A long time for them not to be.
I wonder if they
selectively
kept
bred.
them inside all the time or if they let them kind of come and go, since there was not that like seemingly that much of a distinction between wild cats and home cats.
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination. Like, I think most, like, for the commoner, a cat was in and out. It was in the barn, in the house, just hunting mice to eat. But I mean, there's also like a lot of portraits of like royalty with their cats and like children with a pet cat. So I'm sure there was both. I'm sure pet cats that only lived in the house were more of like a rich person thing.
Yeah.
But then like the Egyptians also kept cats in temples and like had house cats. So they took very good care of their cats. And it depends a lot, I think, on economic class and culture. And then, so like I said, our house cats today are still genetically pretty much wild animals, and they share 95.6% of their DNA with tigers. They're too tiny to kill us, but they make amazing pets, and they probably would seriously harm us if they could, because they're basically wild animals.
Don't human humans share like 96% of DNA with a banana, right?
Is that true?
I don't know.
I thought you were going to say a chimpanzee.
I thought it was something like that. Maybe I'm just like being very, very naive and gullible.
I mean, I kind of thought the same thing too, because I was thinking about like how much of our DNA we share with chimps, and it's a lot. But I'm sure like it's even more with African wildcats, but this is just what stuck out to me was with tigers.
So quick check. We looked it up. Chimpanzees, 96% identical. Banana, more than 60% identical to a banana.
All right. So we're pretty much bananas.
That's the peel. I'm going to edit that out.
Well, basically, they could still interbreed with African wildcats. They're still pretty close.
That makes sense. And what you're saying about like if they wanted to hurt us, they could. The other day I was rubbing Ghost's belly, and you know how cats are just so like they want it, and then they're like, fuck you.
Yeah.
And they just reach that point like so quickly. Like I was rubbing his belly, we were having a great time, and then all of a sudden I'm prey, and he's like using his hind legs to like kick at me, and like it felt like scary for a second.
He's really scary. I like wrestle with him with my arms, and that's why my arms are covered in scratches. But like I'll like grab his belly, and then he grabs my hands, and he like wraps his paws around my hands, and then like digs his claws in there, and then bites them, and then like kicks me with his back legs, and then like ejects his claws. I really shouldn't play with him like that, but he likes
forceful.
It. He is really strong.
Yeah. And
that's how they kill their prey. They like snap its spine by kicking it. And so he does that to us. He knows it. He knows he's not killing us.
So just look at an African wildcat kitten. Like it looks just like the kittens we have.
Yeah.
It looks like, Ernie's eyes. I feel like Safety, he's small like a kitten, but he's always just looked like a cat.
Yeah,
like
he has a very like thin, pointy face. And
he's just a small cat.
I'd agree with that. And cats are the second most popular pet in the United States after fish, and there are 88.3 million cats in the United States as of 2019.
Wow, that's a lot of cats.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's pretty much all I have on cat domestication. And I do have a list of fun cat facts and then like a little activity for the end. So I'm just gonna
ending on an activity. What a teacher move.
I want you to apply what you learned. Anyway, so here's some fun cat facts. So one that I really liked is there may be a link between coat color and behavior. So there's a few studies on this. One of them was by E.A. Stello, and he used an online survey and found that there might be a slightly better chance for aggression in tortoiseshell, calico, gray, white, and black cats. And then also I saw on something else that like orange tabby cats were supposedly like the most friendly. And then especially tortoiseshell cats, they kind of bond to one human and don't really like aren't very social to more than like their one person.
I have heard that about orange cats being very friendly.
Yeah. I had a friendly orange cat. His name was Sinbad.
Oh,
He was a good boy. died of diabetes because he was really fat.
Oh,
but I think he was fat because of diabetes. Maybe.
Happens. We had a dachshund who had diabetes for most of his life, so he was fat, and then towards the end he was fat, diabetic, blind, and deaf.
Oh, poor baby.
Poor
I feel
Otto.
like that happens to dachshunds because they live so long.
They live so
they just
long.
Get all these things.
They have back issues.
Yeah.
They're just like the grumpy old grandpas at the end of the day.
Totally. Another fact, about 5,000 years ago, leopard cats were briefly domesticated in China, separate from the other cat domestications. And we're not talking about leopards. We're talking about these things called leopard cats, which are like about the size of house cats, a little bigger, and they have leopard spots. They're pretty cool looking.
And then they stopped domesticating them because it was
I don't know exactly why, but they didn't get very far. Aren't they
looks
cool?
Scary to be in the house anyway.
Yeah, it does.
Its whiskers are coarse.
Yeah, it's got some big whisks. Male cats are more likely to be left pawed, while females are more likely to be right pawed, and some cats are ambidextrous. And cats have an extra organ that allows them to taste smells in the air, which makes me think of like, have you ever watched those cat videos of a cat like sniffing another cat's butt and then it like makes like a horrible face? It's like,
no, I haven't.
Okay, well, they do that. It's pretty funny.
And don't they have sensors like on their forehead that allows them to like take in smells or to like they feel like they're marking it, which is why they like do that head thing?
They have scent glands all around their faces and heads, and so they like hit you with their head, and that's them marking their territory as you. And that's also why they like to be rubbed on their like chins and cheeks, is because like that's where all their scent glands are, so like it's really sensitive.
Oh
yeah, really cute. Also, neutered males live 62% longer than unneutered cats, and spayed females live 39% longer than unspayed females. So spay and neuter your cats.
Right, not all that energy being taken up thinking about sex.
Right. Also, I'd imagine that like there's some hidden variables here of like people who take good care of their cats get them spayed and neutered, and then people who don't give a shit don't. Also, cats sleep for 12 to 16 hours per day and spend 1/3 of their awake hours grooming. If your cat approaches you with a straight, almost vibrating tail, this means they're extremely happy to see you, which makes me happy because the kittens do that all the time. And like Ghost does that when I get home. Meowing is behavior cats develop to communicate with humans. Cats don't usually meow past adolescence, except to communicate with us, which is really sweet. And they have up to 100 different vocalizations.
Really?
Yeah. So like meow, meow, like Ghost does.
Yeah, that's true.
Or meow, or he goes, hello. Like he sounds like he's saying hello.
Sounds like a human.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
He really does. He can say hello. It's crazy. And then Grimalkin is the name of a female cat, especially an older one. And that makes me think of like all the names of the cats in like the Cats play, how they have like weird names ending in kin. And then there's like Crookshanks, which I guess doesn't have the word kin in it, but like I feel like Grimalkin sounds like all the names in Cats.
I've never seen it.
I was just going to say there's like Grisabella and Skimbleshanks.
Yeah.
And a lot of those kinds of names.
Like maybe those are just like
what is that?
I don't know.
Like what would you
British
put that
people
into?
name their cats weird shit like that, but I feel like maybe it comes from like technical terms for cats, like Grimalkin for a female cat.
Because
I don't know.
the Cats play is all based off T.S. Eliot poetry, and he was really into cats, and so he was like obsessed with cat names and stuff.
Yeah,
so
maybe something, I don't know. I was not a fan, but Alec is.
The musical's good. The 2019 movie's bad.
Okay. Official opinion. Anyway, cats can see in the dark 6 times better than humans, but cannot see in total darkness. And those are all my cat facts. So I just like quickly want to end. One of my favorite things in the world is like medieval portraits of animals and like portraits in the Middle Ages before people knew how to draw animals. And there are so many terrible portraits of cats. So I just have like a few for Hayley to look at, and we can like especially Hayley, like describe what they look like, and I'll put them on Instagram.
That picture, like Alec took several pictures of Tommy and I with Safety, and I feel like Safety looks like one of these weird ass cats in one of these paintings.
Like this?
Oh no. Okay, this one is like has a human face, and it's scary. It has human eyes. What the hell is that?
Completely human eyes and nose and a lips. The only cat thing about it is
the rest of it.
The body.
The face is 100% like. No. It's like 90% human.
Yeah,
because
like really
it has
scary.
like the snout, kind of, but
yeah.
Oh no, that's scary.
No,
it looks like the 2019 movie Cats.
Yeah, it does. And its eyes are really far apart. Oh, it's just so horrible.
It has no neck either. Like it's just all like they took no dimension into it.
Yeah,
it's just flat.
It's really awful.
It looks like the cat morphed into, is like in the middle of morphing into a human and then ran into a glass door and its face got smashed in.
Totally. And then we have this abomination. It looks like a Chinese dragon, kind of, I think.
It looks like an inbred mouse cat monkey scary thing.
Yeah, it has like human like red lips, like it got lip injections, and they're bright red.
Oh, scary mouse cat monkey.
Scary monster. Okay. And then we got this.
Okay, this one is like a freaking ape on all fours, but its head is super tiny.
Oh,
it looks
it's like a gorilla.
It looks like Ed from It looks like
90
Days.
Ed from 90 Day Fiance. It has no neck, and it's like
its tail is straight up like a freaking baseball bat.
Yeah.
It's erect and it is like puffed out.
Speaking
this is
of
a
erect,
muscular fat cat.
Look at this one.
I'm trying to see. Oh, it has, oh my God, it has a penis in its mouth. It looks like a cannon though. I couldn't even see it.
I don't know. I think it might supposed to be a cannon because it was from the 1300s. I think it's like circa 1307 or something. But
what is happening?
There's definitely a penis
picture
in its mouth, a full shaft and balls.
That is a big dick in its mouth.
Maybe it's a small cat.
Yeah, maybe so. But look to it. Next to it is a hand. It looks like a pretty average sized cat.
Oh yeah, that's a small hand, I think. It's definitely a penis, right? That's not a cannon.
No.
Yeah.
What else would it be? I know a penis when I see one.
Yes.
God damn it.
Experience. And then this is my final cat.
Oh, Safety lays like that. But what is up with its face?
It has like a Ron Swanson face.
It does. That is so funny. That's like if for some reason Leslie got them into a predicament where they got turned into cats and Ron Swanson is just waiting there while she figures out how to get them switched back to humans.
Yeah. It totally
looks like it has a mustache.
He looks like he's over everyone's shit, and he has a mustache and like
he's so fat,
like tired looking eyes, like with bags.
He's just done.
Yeah,
he's done with it.
Oh yeah,
he has very short arms too, might I add. It looks like he's missing a segment of his limbs.
It does. His body's like width is like 6 times the length of that cat's arm.
It looks like if he were to stand up and walk, he'd be walking in downward dog.
Yeah,
yoga pose. Because his front limbs are so short, but his back ones, you can see they fold around and come under his body.
He kind of has a T-Rex body.
Yeah,
like, he looks like he's supposed to be standing upright with little arms in front.
Oh my God, I wonder when pets and paintings started to actually look like pets.
Probably the Renaissance.
Yeah, probably. Because
I took a class in college called like it was such a joke, but it was Russian history through art, and so we would just like look at art, and then the professor would explain the art and like in turn like explain Russian history, and it was an awesome class, but I mean it's pretty irrelevant for most things, but they were like the professor
in history.
The professor like had this passion for like pugs in art.
Okay, pug people are a very real thing. I feel like you're either neutral to pugs or you ride or die with pugs.
I love pugs, but like this guy was so weird, and he talked like a robot, and he was like this old man, and the lecture was literally me and 3 other people, and we would just sit in this dark room while this guy like showed us a million pictures of pugs, but they were like medieval pugs and paintings, so they looked horrid. And it was pretty fun.
You're such a good sport.
I really liked it. I showed up to every single class that quarter just because I liked it.
That's a big feat.
Yeah, it was.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Yep.
But anyway, go to class, kids. And that was my lesson.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Let's hear from our amazing sponsors, and we'll be right back.
We drink a lot of wine here at Night Classy, but we appreciate alcohol in all forms.
So when we heard about Ethyl Ambrosia, a company that delivers gel shots to your door, we were here for it.
Ethyl Ambrosia is a female-owned and founded company that offers an elegant twist on the classic Jell-O shot.
Ethyl Ambrosia's recipe was formulated by one of the nation's top food scientists to be 100% vegan. So the shot's base is 3 kinds of seaweeds rather than gelatin. As a lifelong vegetarian, I have tried and failed so many times to make Jell-O shots. For me, they've always just never turned out right. They're always too runny or clumpy, but Ethyl Ambrosia has somehow nailed it. And even more, their seaweed base means that these shots don't melt until 130 degrees Fahrenheit, which makes them perfect for a trip to the pool or beach.
Now, I'm not vegan, but what got me hooked on these gel shots is their push-up cup. Like Dee Dee, Ethyl Ambrosia's founder, I'm a complete germaphobe and always have hated to stick my finger into the Jell-O shots to loosen the Jell-O. Ethyl Ambrosia's push-up cup allows you to push the gel out of the cup without ever having to use your fingers, and it just looks good.
We've tried the shots and we love them. Both of our favorite flavor is rosé, obviously, but they come in all kinds of other amazing flavors, including mojito, citrus punch, and Moscow Mule. Plus, they're 15% alcohol, so they are effective.
We love Ethyl Ambrosia, and we know you will too. So to order your own box of shots, head to ethylambrosia.com. It's ETHYLAMBROSIA.com and enter the promo code NIGHTCLASSY. All caps, no spaces, Night Classy at checkout for 15% off your order. All right, welcome back. It is time for my class. All right, so I'm going to channel my inner preschool teacher here, get some body movement going. Put your finger on your nose if
I already did it.
If you've heard of gain of function research.
No.
Nope. No fingers on noses.
No,
okay,
ma'am.
cool. I had not heard of this either. Gain of function research is highly controversial. And basically what researchers do in labs is make deadly pathogens even more deadly in the lab to help them possibly prepare for potential future outbreaks. Okay. And so the US and many other countries have allowed this research to be conducted. I initially heard about this in the End of the World podcast. It's hosted by Josh Clark, and it consists of like 10 episodes. This one specifically, episode 6, which is on biotechnology, aired in 2018. So it's not recent.
Yeah.
2018. And in this episode, he talks about biotechnology and people doing this like gain of function research. And he has on a guest host, Dr. Lynn Klotz. And this person, he is a retired Harvard faculty member and now a biotechnology executive and does consulting work. And one quote that like really grabbed me was they were just kind of going back and forth, and Dr. Klotz estimated that a lab-caused pathogen outbreak, and again, this was in 2018, I quote, based on the current track record of accidental releases over the course of a 10-year period, considering 10 labs with an average safety record, Dr. Klotz calculates that there's a 27% chance of an undetected lab-acquired infection creating a global pandemic in the next decade.
Oh my God. Okay.
So I'm not going to go into COVID-19. That's not what this is about.
Right.
I
was a little worried.
I have some facts on it if I feel compelled to talk about it, but that is not what this episode is about. It is about labs that are doing this gain of function research. And I highly encourage you, if this does so inspire you to look into COVID-19, to do that on your own time. Okay. So I'm going to start with smallpox. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick history, and this is all through the Center for Disease Control, the CDC. That's what it stands for, right? Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
Right? That's it, right?
I guess.
Let me be sure because I just put in
it is,
CDC. Yeah, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Okay.
Sorry I said it like that.
You're like, yeah, if that's what you want it to be, that's what it can be.
Whatever you want it to be.
I'm like, what, 5 White Claws in? So I'm just kind of like...
we're almost through that box. Self-doubt is at an all-time high.
It's never felt better, though. Let me say that.
Yeah.
So smallpox can be traced way back, like to before the domestication of cats, which we just learned about.
Before 7,000 BC?
No, actually no.
Haley, did you learn anything?
3,000 BC, though.
Okay, so not even close.
Wait, 3rd century BC. Would that be 3,000 BC?
3rd century. That would be 4,000 BC or 400 BC. Wait,
Okay.
what? 4th century? 3rd century.
3rd century.
So that would be 400 BC, I think. Yeah.
Okay, and then yours was
7,500 BC.
okay. Yeah. So smallpox existed before.
Before Jesus.
Yep. Yes. And so it can be traced back because they found smallpox-esque rashes found on mummies in Egypt in the 3rd century BC. And there are tons of other written cases throughout history that perfectly match smallpox. And so through there, it can also be traced through trade routes and just basically growth of civilizations. It's something that's existed for a very long time, has impacted and killed millions and millions and like unthinkable numbers of people. And so I have a fun, gross fact about smallpox. So the way that they used to control it or try to kind of like treat it before vaccines existed, it was called variolation. And like I said, they tried to use it to control the spread of disease. And what they would do is they would take the stuff that like is in the smallpox rash and like sores that appear on your skin, and the stuff that's in there, like I guess it's kind of like pus.
Yeah.
They would scrape it or scratch it into someone's arm.
Yeah.
Or they would inhale it through their nose.
Ooh, I didn't know they inhaled it.
Yeah.
That's grody.
Yeah, they would inhale it.
But I mean, they were on the right track.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, they totally were. It's just disgusting to me now.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
Especially putting it up your nose. At least
Yeah.
they weren't eating it.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd rather just eat it, I think. Just like wash it down with some water.
Yeah. That makes me think of, because I definitely wouldn't rather eat it because you can taste it. But my like 6th grade math teacher was like, why do we think it's gross to like put someone else's toothbrush in your mouth when like we share earphones? Like you're putting someone's like ear stuff in your ear.
Because your mouth is way more gross than your ears.
Is it? Is spit any grosser than earwax?
Yeah. Your mouth is the dirtiest part of your body.
Yeah. But like earwax is also like all like the gross shit in the air gets stuck to it, and it's also nasty.
I think there's just stigma around earwax.
Okay.
Says the girl with the wrong end of a cotton swab stuck in her ear.
Is it still in there?
I have no idea. And since COVID came about, I haven't gone to the ER because I feel like this is a non-issue in comparison. So if if you don't know, basically, I freaking ordered one of these reusable cotton swabs to be eco-friendly, and it's one of the ones that's like made out of rubber, but I didn't get one of the ones that is all one part. It's like a stick, and then on either end it has like rubber things that connect it that's just like a cotton swab. And then one day, it must have been in like January or February, I'm cleaning my ears after the shower, I pull it out and the stick comes out and the white end is not there, and I don't know if it's in my ear or if it like popped out as I brought it out of my ear. I don't know.
This is what happens when you try to be environmentally friendly. It backfires.
It's not
Fuck
worth
the
it.
earth. Just kidding.
Someone has mommy issues. Okay, so yeah, earwax, eco-friendly cotton swabs, Mother Earth, whatever. So variolation, you would scratch the sore into your arm, you would inhale it through your nose. People would develop symptoms such as fever, things like that, but less people died from this treatment than naturally acquiring smallpox. And then fast forward thousands of years, and the final case of naturally occurring smallpox was in Ali Milan. She was a hospital cook in Murcia, Spain. She survived and recovered, and that was in like the 1970s. She survived, recovered, but then died later in 2013 of malaria. And
she had a tough run.
Yeah, she did. She did. She was actually working in the polio eradication campaign.
Wow.
While she died of malaria.
Look at her go.
Yeah, something was going to get her. Rest in peace. And so, anyway, smallpox was, after thousands of years, declared eradicated in 1980 by the World Health Organization. And I actually found like the document where a bunch of people signed in a bunch of different languages. It says, you know, we the people have declared this eradicated. There are no more cases. And there have only been 2 successful eradications in the history of the world.
Really?
Yep. And so that would be smallpox, first ever eradicated disease, and then rinderpest was declared eradicated in 2011.
I've never heard of rinderpest.
I hadn't either. Basically, it's like, I don't think it's really relevant in the US, which is probably why we haven't heard of it, but it seems like it's kind of like flu-like cold like symptoms. But yeah, it was eradicated in 2011, but there are a ton of diseases that are on the list for things that could be eradicated, have the potential to be. Okay. And so back once smallpox was eradicated, the World Health Organization was like, hey, since it's eradicated, we should probably just like destroy all the vials and all the samples we have of this so that no one ever gets it again, right? And every nation was like, yeah, that makes sense. We don't want this to spread. It's been deadly for thousands and thousands of years. Yeah, let's do that. And so all the countries destroyed it except for 2.
Oh, no.
Can you guess who?
Oh, I can guess one of them.
Guess them.
USA. USA.
And Russia.
Yep, USA and Russia. As Tommy said it, we were talking earlier, they, you know, had their cigarettes lit, they put it out, stamped it out, and said, no, we're not gonna get rid of our vials of freaking smallpox.
Yeah.
They wanted to hold on to it.
Yeah.
And so there are people who are for it. There are people who are against it. And so the argument for it is that small variants of this virus could be out there in the natural world. And one thing that I stumbled upon was ice melting in like the Arctic. And since smallpox existed so long ago, like they're worried like, well, what if it's been frozen in this ice somewhere and this ice is melting? What if we, you know, it starts this whole other strain?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been the thing. And then people who are against it are like, there's no need for this. Literally, it's completely gone. And it only allows for the possibility of escape from the lab.
Yeah.
And so just in discussion, thinking about like people working in labs, there's a wide variety of experience all the way up to like the doctors who are leading it, down to lab techs who are just working there to get experience while still in college. And so I think of like, who was I when I was
college
20 years
students are
old?
the most sanitary. I clearly remember being at a party in college and taking tequila shots, and there were no more limes. So I picked a already eaten lime up off the floor and put it in my mouth and used it as a chaser. And I just feel like off of fraternity basement floor.
Ooh.
So I'm just saying, maybe I was worse than most college students, but most college students are not the most sanitary.
Yeah, college students are reckless, and we know this because we're college students.
We were.
I don't know why I say
Not
we are.
anymore.
We were college students. We're teachers now.
Yeah. Teaching the future of America.
We've made our mistakes, and now we know what not to do.
Right. We can give advice based on the mistakes we have made.
Heed our advice.
Yes.
Okay. And so this led to me reading an article from the New York Times that was published in 1979, and it's called Smallpox is Not Dead. And it poses this question. It says, there's a difficult problem that science and mankind has never had to face before. If an ancient, deadly, and historically feared disease that is at last eradicated through the marvels of modern science, should the laboratory stocks of the virus that caused it be kept for important related research?
Are you asking me?
I'm just stating it. If you'd like to answer it, feel free. If not, we'll keep on trucking.
I mean, my thought process right now is maybe they should be like put in a freezer, locked, but not like touched or studied unless we have to.
Ooh, girl, you would be surprised at the freaking recklessness.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
That I'm about to get into, because that is a good point.
Yeah.
It would be great if it could just be put in a freezer and locked. But I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Either way, I think they need to have a really good grip on smallpox and other eradicated diseases, which is what is it, Rinderpest or something like that.
Renderpest?
Yeah.
Renderpest.
It just sounds like a made up like German fairy tale.
Sounds like Santa Claus in another country.
Yeah, it does.
Rinderpest brings me present.
What is the one Dwight does?
Oh, what is it?
Schmoopelhaus. What is he?
I don't remember. Oh my God,
If
what
I were
is it?
sober, I'd know.
I know. Alec, please Google it. Schwitzel? Schwitzel is here. Don't fear.
Sure.
Bell's nickel.
Schnickel.
That's a real thing. Did you know that?
Yeah. Welschnickel, Winterpest, and smallpox. The gift that keeps on giving for thousands of years. So anyway, back to the lesson, class. There are lots of labs, and the whole goal is to study these dangerous pathogens and see how they develop and prepare a way to treat them if it's necessary. Now, this research is highly dangerous, and it is shockingly prone to accidents.
So wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
So if you have the smallpox vaccine, the chances of you contracting it from a lab are probably really, really low.
Well, there was a case of a woman who actually died, and she had the smallpox vaccine, and she got it from her daughter, who got it from a lab outbreak, which I'll talk about.
Okay.
So you would hope that the vaccine is foolproof,
Right.
but historically,
Yeah.
not so much.
Nothing's perfect.
Right. So they're highly prone to accidents. So I'm just going to go through a select few of these lab outbreaks. In 2004, in Beijing, a CDC worker was handling coronavirus and was infected with SARS. So, the 2004 SARS outbreak. The virus killed one person, which is not too bad. Obviously, they should have never been killed. But the virus was able to travel all the way to Hong Kong and Canada before it was ever controlled and stopped from spreading. And so that SARS outbreak was the direct result of an incorrectly inactivated virus. And so one of the responsibilities of these labs is to inactivate these viruses so they can be safely handled and studied. And so they can either treat them with really high heat, which is like 60 degrees Celsius for 60 minutes, or they can change their pH levels. So that was a problem. In 1977, it's going way back. Let me set the scene here. It's fall time. It's flu season. And a strain is out there. As we know, during flu season, there's lots of different strains. But in 1977, there was one out that was almost identical to the H1N1 that was from 1950. And the reason why this was such a big thing was because viruses evolved so freaking fast that it's completely unthinkable that this virus could even resemble this one from 1950. And so they're trying to figure out like why in the world, because it's like epochs for a virus to survive and look anything similar to something 3 decades later. Mm-hmm. And so scientists are mulling over this really bizarre phenomenon for years until they conclude that the virus must have somehow gone out of commission and then returned nearly 30 years later. And so really, to me, it was like a case of Occam's razor. Like the simplest explanation is typically the key. And in this case, they think that it was most likely frozen and kept in a lab and then got out somehow in 1970. And that's what happened. Yeah, they conclude that's what happened. Scary. It was released in a vaccine that was not inactivated properly. Like literally a vaccine that's supposed to protect you from this.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't inactivated properly.
Okay.
So obviously, you know, this boils down to human error, science that is new. There are a lot of issues going on with these labs. In 1978, at the University of Birmingham in the UK, Janet Parker was working at the university as a photographer, and she caught smallpox at work. Her office was just 1 floor above the medical microbiology department where they were studying smallpox, and smallpox literally traveled through the air duct into her office.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Dang.
Like, where's the
You
caution?
would think there'd be some kind of like air system that like air is only blowing in, like it's not circulating out for a lab like that.
Yeah. Or even so, if they want to have free flowing air with smallpox, have your own fucking building.
Right. Yeah. Seal that shit off.
Yeah.
And she died.
Yeah, she died, and her mother, who cared for her, also died of smallpox.
Oh my God.
And it was later discovered in an investigation that the lab was appallingly mismanaged. The Dr. Bedson running the lab completed suicide days after this woman's diagnosis.
Oh man.
Oh my God.
So that leads to the question, what else was going on? What the hell happened, basically?
Yeah, I mean, he obviously felt responsible.
Yeah. And so these 3 examples I learned about at the End of the World podcast and did my own research to get some of these other facets of the situation. Now, this next one, these come from the articles, the Sverdlovsk anthrax outbreak of 1979, which is an article. You can look that up. It was published in November 18th, 1994, and then the Sverdlovsk outbreak, a portent of disaster by Al Venter. So in 1979, in the Soviet city of Sverdlovsk, 90-something people were affected. 64 people died of anthrax. And so initially, the Soviet government attributed these anthrax deaths to meat that had gone bad. Tainted meat. And so some American journalists and scientists believed this. Some did not. And it went on for like years and years. And basically they suspected that there was a violation of this biological weapons convention. And these suspicions were completely public. They were like, we think that you have something to do with this.
Yeah.
And the Soviets were like, no. They denied.
Yeah. No, sir.
13 years later, in 1992, President Boris Yeltsin, he's like, okay, yeah, the anthrax outbreak, yeah, that was us.
My bad.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oopsie.
Yeah. Oopsie.
Yeah, so he admits that it was due to military activity, but does not give any additional details.
All right.
Not helpful.
Cool.
But what he did do is he allowed Western scientists to investigate the outbreak in Sverdlovsk. So they come in, they're trying to talk to people, they're looking at the lab. The KGB had swiped up hospital records and all the records basically, but these scientists were able to track down the locations of the people that were affected by this and ultimately who died of this anthrax poisoning. And it turns out they were all downwind from this military facility.
Okay.
And this outbreak was caused by military workers who, listen to this, they were replacing a filter just like you do in your house. And they just like forgot or did not immediately install the new one.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
When you take it out, you don't
Put
have
the new
another
one
one to put in. It's your job.
Right.
What?
When you take out your toilet paper roll that's empty, do you not put in a new one?
I mean, sometimes no, but yeah.
You nasty.
I'm not getting paid to change my toilet paper.
Right. Like, so yeah, the anthrax became airborne, killed people as well as livestock. And they looked at the weather from that day and they were like, if the wind would have been strong at all that day, like there was almost no wind, but if it would have been, there would have been thousands of people dead.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and this is all from a military facility. No Western visitors have been allowed to visit the actual military facility.
Gee, I wonder why.
I have no idea. There's nothing suspicious around it. They don't even need to visit it. So those are just a few instances of these labs dealing with extremely dangerous biological material that can have a really lasting effect.
Yeah.
And so accidents from these labs, according to the End of the World podcast, from 2004 to 2010, so 6 years, there were 639 reported accidental releases of pathogens found on the USDA's list of biological select agents and toxins. So 634 times within 6 years, there was a release of pathogens in these highly sensitive cases.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And so these bacteria and viruses include Ebola, bacteria that causes the plague, the virus that causes SARS. Those are all on the list.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel pretty indifferent because I'm pretty drunk. But also, you know, there are all those people posting like shit about how like SARS got out of, or coronavirus came out of like a Chinese lab, and like there's this big cover up. Mm-hmm. And like I've always dismissed that as like a crazy, maybe borderline racist conspiracy theory. Mm-hmm. But hearing this, it's like maybe that's a possibility, even though like the official statement has been that that's been debunked and this was a naturally occurring disease. Mm-hmm. But I think criticism is okay as long as you are doing good research and fact checking and like double checking your sources and being critical and not just being a conspiracy theory alarmist.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was the same way too after learning about these labs, especially because the podcast that I heard about this from was published 2 years ago. Yeah. Looking into this has made me look more into other current events. Something else that's scary are these 639 accidents are the ones that are reported. So only publicly funded labs are required to report these accidental outbreaks. So that does not include corporately funded labs. That does not include private group labs. They are not required to report shit.
Really? Like just in the US or anywhere?
All over. There is a complete lack of regulation over these labs. Like almost none exist. The US like put a moratorium on these labs for like a couple years, but they've been back in action and like everything is fine now. So other cases that I took note of, both in 2014, the National Institute of Health and the CDC lost track of 6 active vials of variola virus that causes smallpox from the 1950s. So just like you said, yeah, it would be great if they could put it in a freezer and lock it. But they just stumbled upon it one day and they look at these vials and it's labeled variola virus and they're like, holy shit. This is smallpox.
They just find it?
Yeah, they just found it.
What the fuck?
It was from the 1950s.
Oh my God.
So it's just like carelessness that could get us into real trouble. And so like I'm totally all for learning how viruses work and continuing modern science, but that's a bit much.
Yeah.
In 2014, again, a CDC worker mails live strains of bacteria that causes typhoid fever to another lab in a used box, unmarked for hazardous material, just using regular UPS shipping.
What is wrong with people?
Some of the vials were broken in that box.
Oh my God.
There's like almost no regulation on these labs. Okay. So yeah, this is all risky. And it would be great if they could successfully inactivate viruses. But like I said, there's like a couple ways to do it, but it's risky because it doesn't always work. There's human error and the pathogens don't always die.
Yeah.
And so this is, I feel like, a really sensitive topic. And so there's a lot of different points I'd like to make, and I will very briefly. But I didn't know about a lot of this stuff until I did my own research within this past week.
Right.
And so it's really easy to dismiss things and things like that. But so just keep an open mind. But other notes that I have that didn't really fit in to the flow of things was I am talking about like censoring science. That's been a big thing that scientists have been fighting about, because the question is like, should scientists be allowed to publish their findings about how they created a new potentially deadly virus, how they did that in the lab? And so it's their livelihood, it's their research that they're doing, they're being funded to do. But when it's put out there, what can people do with it?
Yeah.
The options are really endless, especially with labs being able to create genetic material and just send them to your house. That's a thing. According to New Scientist, there are Australian researchers that created a virus that was similar to smallpox, only it only affected mice. They were trying to create a contraceptive for mice, but it ended up killing all of the mice in the lab within 9 days.
Oh my God. And
So,
not
like,
on purpose.
Not on purpose. They wanted to just control, like birth control for mice.
Yeah.
And so the question is like, how do you stop terrorists from taking this legitimate research and adapting it for their own nefarious purposes?
Right. Even if there's just like one fucked up scientist in that lab that takes it and just releases it.
Right.
You don't know.
And I would bet money that all of these accidental releases, the 600 plus that happened within those 6 years, I would bet money that none of them were evil scientists that let them go, but the effects of it are huge.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also a lot of concern from people who want to have these gain of function research going on. And like, I think of anti-vaxxers.
Yeah.
They're a pain in the ass right now. How about after these pandemics that could happen? What happens after COVID-19? They don't get their kids vaccinated. They don't get vaccinated. It leads to this endless cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. Mandatory vaccination. No one is trying to microchip you. They just want to keep you safe.
Yeah. But again, we saw that case where the vaccination didn't help anything. So it's just like,
well, that case, it wasn't that the vaccination didn't help. It was just that one vial wasn't properly inactivated.
Right. Oh, Well, the woman, the mom,
Yeah.
Janet Parker's mom, she was vaccinated.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So like I'm all for vaccinations, but like, you know, vaccinations only cover a certain amount of strains.
Right. But if everyone gets vaccinated,
It should be
it's
good.
herd immunity, and at least it won't spread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so another point I want to make is that bioengineered, these viruses that are created to be more deadly inside the lab, all that stuff, it does not equate to them being created in the lab. And that's important to note because just reflecting on viruses that, you know, are in labs and may have escaped, they're not created purely out of like terrorism.
Yeah.
It is also unknown how many high-risk labs exist in the US and in the world. Like there's not even a ballpark number. There are a ton popping up all around because essentially it brings clout to universities and to corporations to be like handling this highly secure, dangerous thing. And like I've said multiple times, there are virtually no regulation services for these high containment labs. In the US, the National Institutes of Health fund this research and they give them guidelines. They're like, here you go. Here are like the rules we'd like you to abide by. But literally nothing happens if they don't follow these guidelines.
Cool.
Yeah.
Love
there's
it.
very little regulation worldwide and almost no requirement to report these lab accidents. And like I said before, private labs are not required at all. So
Cool.
in wrapping up, pros, we need this research to develop cures and to understand how diseases work. Cons, extremely dangerous possibility of biological warfare.
Yeah.
And so basically, this is all kind of like the wild, wild west.
Right.
I have 2 facts here about coronavirus. Should we talk about it or should we not?
I mean, it's up to you. We're running it like 35 minutes. So depending on how long you think.
So this comes from independentsciencenews.org. The long history of accidental laboratory releases of potential pandemic pathogens is being ignored in the COVID-19 media coverage by Sam Husseini. This journalist seems to be, according to like their other articles, pretty dedicated to these pathogen outbreaks. But in relation to COVID-19, the pandemic started in Wuhan. And that is the only place in China that has a declared level 4 lab that's the highest level and handles the deadliest pathogens. Okay, so it started in Wuhan. The alleged origin of coronavirus, COVID-19, is in the Yunnan province, which is 1,000 miles from Wuhan. And so the question that's posed in this article is that yes, could come from bats in Yunnan, but what if they brought this to this level 4 lab? They were studying it there and something happens. It goes through the air duct. It gets into someone's, space suit, essentially, like just asking these questions.
Yeah.
So if you're curious, look into it more. I'm not saying this is what it is. I'm not saying it's not.
Right. I mean, no one can know at this point, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is my quick lesson on bioengineering and this gain of function research. Definitely look into it more because it's interesting and it could definitely concern you.
Yeah. That was awesome. Thank you so much for that lesson. I learned a ton and now I'm scared forever. So
don't be scared. Wash your hands. Be cautious. Do your research.
All right.
We ready?
I can do those things. Yeah. 3, 2, 1. Class dismissed. Yeah.